Welcome back to the Morning Show here on the Rise News. Joining us now to take a look at the news stories making headlines around the globe is Rise News correspondent Aron Akerejola. Hello, Aron. Good to see you.
How are you doing today?
Hi, Aron. Good morning.
It's good to be here today. We've got stories here in Nigeria and across the world. And let's just delve straight into it. And let's tell you that the Nigerian government has finally waded into the crisis at the National Health Insurance Scheme, the NHIS, by suspending the Executive Secretary of NHIS, Dr. Yusuf, and setting up an independent fact-finding panel to investigate the allegation of fraud leveled against him. A press statement titled, Suspension of the Executive Secretary of the National Health Insurance Scheme, which was signed by Mr. Olusegun Adekunle, the Permanent Secretary for the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, said that President Buhari had approved the establishment of the pro panel after due consultation. The 7-man panel, headed by Dr. Hassan Bukar, a retired Permanent Secretary, has 2 weeks to submit its reports.
Well, I think it's a good development.
Yeah.
And in fact, if there's anything to say, I would say it's that the president should probably have acted much earlier
than this, yes.
Because the case of the NHIS Executive Secretary had become a complete embarrassment to the government. It had become one of those issues, critics of the government were using to say that, look, the Buhari government, the Buhari administration is not sincere about the anti-corruption war.
True.
What happened in this gentleman's case was that he was first indicted or accused of corruption, and he was taken out of office. He was suspended. Then the federal government brought him back. Then again, the council, the supervising council, the governing council of the NHIS, the National Health Insurance Scheme, again accused him of certain misconduct relating to the misappropriation, the mismanagement of funds. And then that whole argument about, the governing council asking him to go on suspension to allow a proper investigation, and he's saying that the governing council has no right to superintend over whatever he does. And, we even had a situation whereby Garuba Shehu, one of the president's spokesmen, came forward and said the governing council had no right, had no powers to suspend the executive secretary of the NHIS. And then the whole thing degenerated to a point where 2 labor groups, involved in the NHIS scheme, began to fight over, whether the man should go on suspension or not. I think all that untidiness should have been avoided.
True talk.
The problem the government has now, in my view, is that if at the end of the day, the 7-man panel absolves him of any guilt, of any blame, of any indictment, Nigerians will still come around and say, well, it's a cover-up.
True.
The truth of the matter is I think this has been mismanaged. I think government needs to be more proactive in cases like this. This is not to say, however, that the man is guilty as alleged. He should be given fair hearing. The governing council can proceed with further investigations. But we should not crucify him yet until guilt is probably established against him or otherwise.
Indeed, it has been a very messy situation. I remember the House of Representatives wading into it the first time he was suspended. The Minister of Health, it was a face-off between the Minister of Health. It was a dirty fight on pages of newspapers and the media. I also think that this affords the government an opportunity to reevaluate the entire scheme. Very largely, it hasn't achieved what it was set to do. A large percentage of Nigerians still pay out of pocket for health, which is retrogressive with the way what health systems are operating. You find out that countries who are recording great health indices in the world have functioning, efficient health insurance scheme. We have not been able to achieve that. Instead, we're having this messy situation of the executive director, the council, the Minister of Health, who said what, who did what, who should approve what. The monies, there was a time the accusation was some SUVs were bought with the monies from the scheme. All of this corruption, again, it's the common man who has to use that public hospital, who has to go and receive health care that suffers all of this. So I think beyond this panel that has been set up by the president, and it is good that he's wading into this matter again, and hopefully this time around we'll find a lasting solution to it. But the healthcare system, I think this is an opportunity to also bring it in this matter.
Well, by way of summary, the point is that, look, the NHIS has not been able to achieve its goals and objectives. If the objective is to provide better access to affordable health care, either under the Buhari administration or previous administrations, that has not been achieved. And even the HMOs, the health management offices across the country, they are also confused. So our point is right to say that, look, we have to focus on the goals and the objectives. And maybe the president should see this as an opportunity to take a second look at how, the NHIS is run.
I want to look at it from the angle of, since the president has already actually came into office and actually was branded the anti-corruption crusader, when things bordering on corruption are actually brought forward, I think this administration has been extremely slow and not entirely very forthright about how they should handle this. Like you just rightly mentioned, it just brings to mind what happened in the case of Minor back in the day. Was it the last year or some years before, whereby 1 minute somebody was indicted of corruption, the other minute you're bringing out a list and that man is still on that list.
Well, but, in this case, as I always want, we cannot crucify a man or, convict a man until it is proven. What is untied in this is a man, an appointee of government, saying that I'm untouchable.
No, that's the
point. I'm an appointee of the president, nobody can
Especially
touch
because we had seen this happen. We were hoping that the steps, I think, they are a little bit slow. The government of the day are a little bit slow in hitting at people that have question marks on their head, because they make themselves sitting ducks by doing so. Babachi Lawa, for example, a lot of allegations were leveled against him. For a long time, people were asking, what is being done? And nobody said anything for a while, but that's my own problem. If you brand yourself as anti-corruption crusaders, when corruption issues are brought up against members of your cabinet, against members of your government, the swiftness in which you act sends a message to Nigerians, sends a message to the international community that truth be told, then maybe you're actually living by your words or you're putting your money where your mouth is. Because there are several instances whereby they've leveled corruption charges against people and the government has just been quiet. Kemi Adeosun, for example, for a long time, I think it went on for too long. The case about the NLC certificate, and nobody said anything. And people were asking, is this woman, are they just leveling very grave accusations against her without any concrete reasons? By the end of the day, look at where it actually found us. It's really sad, really, really sad. But still in Nigeria, let's tell you that the stage is set for a major confrontation between workers and government over the disagreement on the new national minimum wage. While the organized labor is agitating for 30,000 naira as the new minimum wage, the state governors are offering 22,000 as what the states could afford. Addressing the press conference on Wednesday, the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Ayuba Waba, said that the organized labor will maintain its stand on the implementation of 30,000 naira as the new minimum wage and would not accept any move to negotiate it downwards. He also said that barring any change of position by the government, members of the organized labor will proceed with the planned strike on Tuesday.
We keep our fingers crossed till November 6th, but it sends a scary, gloomy picture for some Nigerians who have to think about, should we stockpile the houses now? What is the next step for us? What are we supposed to do? Labour doesn't seem to be shifting ground because they said all the way from 60-something thousand naira, we've come to 30,000 at a tripartite meeting. And then you go under this umbrella of Nigerian Governors Forum and decide this is what we can pay. They don't seem to be buying that figure from the governors. So this really looks like who to blink first. And when you have situations like that, it is the masses who are left to bear the brunt because Labour says, you know, they even went ahead to say, go and vote out the governors who are not willing to pay 30,000 naira. So it really seems like a showdown we're waiting to see in the country.
Well, what you have clearly is a statement.
Yes.
And you will recall that Labour did not attend the meeting that was held. So Labour is saying directly that, you know, if this is supposed to be a tripartite meeting, then, you know, two parties cannot just meet and dictate to organize labor. But I think that at the end of the day, what we should be worried about is not about people stockpiling food. It's the larger implication for the economy, for the, you know, emerging electoral process, and how at the end of the day, all of this can damage both the government and have implications for people's welfare. But I still think that on the question of the minimum wage, since the federal government had agreed in principle that it will increase minimum wage, it also has an obligation not to dictate to labor, but to ensure that whatever emerges out of that process of negotiation is mutually agreed.
All right, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Tuesday is just about the corner. Today's Thursday, okay? Let's say that the Nigerian government, meanwhile, have commenced the process for the settlement of all subsidy areas to all marketers through the promissory notes, determined to accelerate the payment of outstanding bills to all marketers. The Debt Management Office, the DMO, has expressed its preparedness to meet with the oil marketers this month, November 2018. This was a decision taken at a meeting between the Senate Committee on Downstream Petroleum Sector and the Federal Ministry of Finance, the Debt Management Office, the Central Bank of Nigeria, and the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, and representatives of the oil marketers held in Abuja yesterday.
Well, I think it's a smart move.
True.
Coming from the Senate Committee. But at the same time, you know, we find some contradictions here. When the government came to power, this government, the Buhari administration, it promised that it will no longer pay subsidy.
True.
You know, which had been an issue even under the Jonathan administration. But the government now saying, look, it will sit down with the marketing companies and provide the subsidy debts is part of the internal debts and pay debts that are being owed. A promissory note, you know, which you mentioned, is an agreement.
True.
That, look, if you provide this service, then we'll pay so amount at a future date. So it's an obligation which you must pay. And that's why the Debt Management Office is involved in that. And if the oil marketers have been importing fuel, they are also in a situation whereby they can hold the country to ransom.
True, Doug.
So at another level, this is, apart from the principle of it, a political move, because you could have a situation as we go into the elections that the, you know, marketing companies, oil marketing companies, can just decide to stop bringing in finished products, and then they will ground down, you know, the economy, and that will have, you know, negative effect. However, I think that a long-term issue is the point that was made earlier on this program by Dan Kunle, whom we interviewed sometime this week. Saying, why are the refineries not working?
True.
Why is Nigeria totally dependent on imported refined products when it has facilities in parts of the country, in Warri, in other places, you know, for refining crude? Why are we now, you know, dependent for the refining of a product that is available here? You know, why are we not addressing the issue of domestic supply? That is a long-term thing. Otherwise, government will always find itself in this kind of difficult position where it can be held hostage by persons who import fuel.
What you're just saying is just hitting the nail on the head, because in all sincerity, with power of hindsight right now, it's easy to make promises, it's easy to make campaign promises, it's easy to make, to just throw out words there and not being able to walk the walk, or but only just talk the talk. Because coming into, at the start of this particular administration, there were certain definitive promises that were made that you'll be thinking that in the future, right now, from then, between then and now, we'll have refineries working. We'll not have oil prices at the rate we are having oil prices today. The subsidy issue will not be an issue, because according to certain figures that are being quoted out there, they say we're even paying more for subsidy now than in the previous government. And you get to see these things and you say to yourself, as we go into 2019, we need to actually reevaluate a lot of things because promises have been made, and majority of all those promises that have been made have not actually been backed with credible action. Because till now, and it's not looking like it will happen, it will change in the near future, that we will have Nigeria refining its own oil, Nigeria actually doing things to actually make the everyday man on the street life better. It's really sad.
For me, I think it calls to question the recurring question, really, of transparency in subsequent governments, not just this government, about the dealings of NNPC, which has become like the biggest masquerade. Everybody has refused to unveil and just dances around it. It's also difficult to keep abreast what names they are calling it these days, subsidy or no subsidy. We're not even sure what they're calling it anymore because at a point they were not paying for it. Now they're paying for it. And then the NNPC decided to be the sole importer of the product into the country. And so you wonder, these debts that we keep servicing and we keep paying back, there needs to be transparency as to why we're paying these monies. What are we paying these monies for? Like Dan Kule said the other day, NNPC told us that we are now importing astronomical figures of the products. Double. Exactly, double. Why has it doubled? Nobody has told us. What are we doing with it? What happened? A lot of questions remain unanswered. True. And until we do that, I think we will keep seeing this. And it's somewhat strategic before election years. We continue to see this sort of things raise their heads.
All right, let's move away from Nigeria and actually find out what's happening in the international community. And let's say that Turkey has given its first official statement on how it believes writer Jamal Khashoggi was killed, saying that he was immediately strangled. The statement follows weeks of media reports about the murder at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul on the 2nd of November. Turkey has yet to... October, I beg your pardon? Okay, 2nd of November is actually tomorrow, okay? Let's say that Turkey has yet to provide evidence. Let's say that Chief Prosecutor Irfan Fidan said a meeting with his Saudi counterparts on Monday yielded no concrete results. Saudi Arabia has not commented on the meeting. As the days go by, we are hearing, it's being brought to light the very, very horrific and gruesome way and the very graphic and gory way this man was actually been known, but it's just left for people to actually confirm what their biggest fears were, how this man was just gruesomely murdered.
And that's because really all we have had is leaks, unnamed officials, sources, unverified sources, some sources within the consulate, some sources in the Turkish government, then the Saudi Arabia version. So there's really no concrete evidence yet. Although the Turkish government says they do have these audios and videos to show.
But they are still very reluctant to.
It's about a month, and we haven't seen any of those. Saudi Arabia has its own version, says, okay, it was premeditated murder. It took them a lot of time to confirm after denying. And now they're saying 18 officials have been arrested, 2 top officials have been dismissed, and a lot of investigations are going on. We're expecting one committee to submit its report in a month's time. But all of this is just dragging, and it's like an unending horror movie. There needs to be evidence to conclude this. And even for the family, the fiancée, she gave her first statement some weeks ago, calling on the U.S. government to take a stand, really, and make sure that perpetrators are brought to book. For me, it's a lot of unending loose ends that we have here.
Well, what is clear is that the murder of, the Saudi citizen and the American resident is unacceptable by any standards whatsoever. True. And this has become a major embarrassment for the Saudis, to the extent that, the Saudi authorities are even considering, the monarch is considering asking Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, to even step down. Some officials have been, displaced on account of all of this. But the message it sends across is that there are international rules of human relations, below which no nation can be allowed to go. And that's why, Saudi Arabia has suffered a lot of embarrassment on account of this. Corporate institutions turning their back on Saudi Arabia. Those who were planning to have investments in Saudi Arabia refusing to go ahead. Congress members saying that, look, Saudi Arabia must be sanctioned. And countries in Central Europe coming out even more strongly than, the United States to say that this is unacceptable. True. The other leg of it is the fact that the gentleman, Jamal Khashoggi, was a journalist, okay? And he's been a victim for his attempt to express himself. He's been, murdered because of his insistence on his freedom of thought. And I think that, it sends a wrong signal to the international community at any time. When any human being, be they journalists or ordinary individuals, when they are treated in this manner, choked, assaulted, cut into pieces, yes. Just because that's the word, dismembered, just because they hold opinions that other persons or governments are not comfortable with.
Really, really sad, really sad. I hope they can actually put this to bed so we can have closure and also let this serve as a turning point in how journalists are actually treated.
There probably won't be any proper closure because the man is already dead.
No, I'm even talking about for the fiancé.
It will remain a reference point.
True talk.
In terms of how Saudi Arabia responds to dissidents. And it's not just Saudi Arabia, it's the entire, Middle East, where you have, an emerging dictatorship in many of the countries where, freedom of opinion is a problem, is considered a threat to the ruling sitting authorities.
Yes. All right, let's also tell you that a black bus flight recorder from Lion Air Flight JT610 has been found by divers off the coast of Indonesia. The plane carrying 189 people crashed soon after taking off from Jakarta, the Indonesian capital, on Monday. It plummeted into the Java Sea. No survivors have been found, nor have the body of the Boeing 737. There is yet no indication of what caused the crash, though there are reports that the aircraft had experienced technical problems on earlier flights. Recovering the flight recorder means aviation safety experts can begin piecing together the plane's final moments to work out what went wrong. Lion Air, a budget airline based in Indonesia, had sacked its technical director, Mohammed Asif.
Well, this is a routine procedure.
True.
When there is a plane crash, you try to investigate to determine exactly what happened. We hope that, the aviation authorities can learn relevant lessons from what has happened. But the point to be made is that Indonesia, which, as I pointed out when last we took this topic, is an archipelago of about 13,000 islands, which means that there's a lot of dependence on air travel. But that country, despite its dependence on air travel, has not been able to develop its capacity in terms of safety records. So I think it's important that the relevant authorities in that country take a closer look at air safety, okay, so that you don't have, the last time it was Airbus, now is Boeing 737 MAX 8, so there is a challenge there. And if any foreign help is needed, I think that is important. However, at the end of the day, in matters like this, the final residue rests with the affected families.
Sure.
The people who have lost their loved ones, who have lost, their family members. They are the ones to bear the brunt on a long-term basis. But if the country can develop, better safety air records, then on the long term, then it will be good for everyone.
And this is a step for the families involved to know, and aviation experts, authorities, regulators to know what exactly happened to that flight. If they have found the black box, that should be able to tell what happened in the hours when the plane went down. It is sad. I saw visuals of people recovering special effects of their loved ones. A father particularly identified the shoe of his 24-year-old son, and that was very emotional. It was very touching. In all of this catastrophe, in all of this going on, a father is able to identify the shoe of his son, and you can just imagine what that is. The president, Joko Widodo, visited the rescue and operation site yesterday. It was just devastating to see that this is happening again in Indonesia.
Really sad for the nation as they've thrown into very, very deep mourning.
Thank you, Aron.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Much. So we'll see you again.
Yeah, we'll be here later on.
A double dose of Aron on what's trending later in the show. Well, that's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now.